2, okay?
Right, we're now live.
And it is 2.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Northern Planning Committee. I am Councillor Paul Wynne, Chair of the committee. This meeting is being live streamed so members of the public can hear the audio of the meeting and view the papers shown on the screen. If any committee members experience technical difficulties during the meeting, please contact IT on the number you already have. Please mute your microphones unless asked to speak and re-mute after speaking. Use the chat function to indicate you want to speak, but nothing else, because of the debate has to be heard by those listening to the audio feed. Members should ensure that they are present throughout the meeting, as you cannot vote on any item if you have not heard all the debate. As Chair, I will interpret the Council's existing standing orders in light of the requirements of remote participation, with advice from the monitoring officer prior to making a ruling. At the start of the meeting, I will ask members of the committee to confirm their presence and any disclosable pecuniary interests. Can members and officers introduce themselves each time before they speak, so those listening know who is speaking? Members must disclose any pecuniary interest if any matters to be discussed, which is not included in the register of interest, and leave the meeting by turning off their camera and muting their microphones prior to the matter being discussed. Okay, we'll do the roll call now. So starting with Councillor Roy Aldercroft.
Yeah, I'm present and I have no pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas Bardsley.
Where's he gone?
You're muted, Nick. Councillor Nick Bardsley. We can't hear you. I know you're there.
Chair, it's Miranda Goward, solicitor. He appears to just be not quite in the meeting now where he was before. Perhaps come back at the end of the roll call.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Gerald Dakin.
Present, Chair, and I've got an interest to declare on item 5 and item 7, and I intend to speak on both of them and then leave the meeting.
Because you're the local member.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Pauline D.
Present and no pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Councillor Nat Green.
Present and no pecuniary interests.
Thank you. Councillor Vince Hunt.
Present and no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Mark Jones.
Present and no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Pamela Mosley.
Present, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Keith Roberts.
Present, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor David Vesmere.
Present and no pecuniary interests.
And myself, Paul Wynne, I do have an interest on item 5. Yeah, the public might have the perception of bias for or against as me being a local man, okay? So I will not be taking part in that item. The vice chair will take over as chair. Okay, so just going back to Nicholas Bardsley, Councillor Nicholas Bardsley, are you there now?
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I was disconnected by the system just as you were about to call my name. I'm present and I've no pecuniary interest.
Thank you very much. Okay. Can the officers now confirm their presence, starting with planning officers, please?
Philip Molyneux, Principal Planner.
Kelvin Hall, Principal Planner.
Thank you.
French, Principal Planner.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Solicitor?
Miranda Goward, solicitor.
Thank you. Committee officers?
Shelley Davis, Committee Officer.
Thank you very much. I shall now turn to the items on the agenda. 1, apologies. Do we have any apologies?
No, there are no apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. Item 2. To confirm the minutes of the Northern Planning Committee meeting held on the 13th of October 2020. Yeah. I move that the minutes of the previous Northern Planning Committee meeting held on the 13th of October 2020 as circulated be signed as a correct record. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now accept these minutes as a true record unless anyone else indicates differently. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. Okay, I'll take those as passed. Item 3, public question time. Do we have any questions from the public?
No, there's no public questions.
Thank you very much. Item 4, disclosable pecuniary interest. This has been dealt with during the initial roll call of the meeting. Turning to the substantive items, the planning officer will present the item, then we'll deal with the public speaking part of the meeting, then open it to the members of the committee to debate. This is item 5, Brothelfield's Farm, which I shall hand over to the Vice Chair now, and I shall mute myself and switch the camera off. Okay, I'll hand over to you, Vice Chair. Vince, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I, as the Chair has indicated, will be sitting in the chair for this item. Brewellfields Farm, Ash Road, Whitchurch. It's a variation of condition number 6, pursuant to 1604.784/VAR to allow for digestive processing of agricultural and dairy waste and non-waste feedstocks. Can I ask the planning officer to introduce themselves and present this item, please? Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Graham French, Principal Planner. So members previously visited this site, which is opposite the Waymills Industrial Estate in Whitchurch. The anaerobic digester itself was permitted in 2014, and further applications to vary the layout and increase throughput were approved in 2017 and 18. Condition 6 of the 2017 permission defines the permitted feedstock materials and excludes agricultural wastes. Current application seeks to vary this condition to allow the introduction of poultry manure as part of the feedstock mix. There will be no other changes to the approved working scheme. A maximum of 27 tonnes of poultry manure will be imported each day as part of the 120-tonne feedstock mix, amounting to just under 25% of the daily total. Of the 44,000 tonnes of feedstock permitted annually, no more than 10,000 tonnes would be poultry manure. The manure will be imported each working day in a single covered trailer from a farm near Burlton, will be stored under cover prior to transfer by covered trailer to Whitchurch Biogas. Deliveries will be on a just-in-time basis, with the manure being fed to the AD process immediately upon receipt. No manure will be stored at the site except for emergencies, when any on-site manure will be covered. The application follows the approval of an environmental permit this January by the Environment Agency. The permit allows importation of agricultural waste subject to detailed operational controls, including on odour. The permit requires manure importation to be in phased way, gradually starting with a lower tonnage in order to allow for review. So in terms of consultees, there have been no objections from technical consultees, but we have received objections from Whitchurch Town Council and from 36 local residents. The Town Council has expressed concern about the number of changes to the facility. They also refer to a lack of detail regarding odour control, traffic and manure volumes. The applicant has subsequently provided further information on these matters. Local residents expressed concerns about odour, traffic, highway safety, health, noise, pollution, general amenity and countryside encroachment. The letters are available on the planning register. They recount that agricultural waste feedstocks have until now been prohibited and refer to sensitive local uses in the area. Reassurances are sought regarding the ability to control the operations. So the principle of the development was established by the original 2014 application, which recognised the benefits of the proposals in terms of renewable energy generation, accepted the need for the development to be located close to the premises of the Waymills cooling units as the energy end user. Current proposals represent a further change in support of the viability of this renewable energy use. Council has declared a climate emergency. This highlights strategic objection 9 of the core strategy to promote a low carbon Shropshire. NPPF paragraph 154 advises that planning authorities should approve renewable energy applications if impacts are or can be made acceptable. So in terms of the development itself, all on-site activities will be contained to minimise the possibility of odour impact. Additionally, condition 14 in Appendix 1 requires the applicant to submit an updated odour management plan, including a voluntary digestate spreading code of conduct. The applicant has indicated a willingness to extend this condition to formalise requirements for complaint investigation and mitigation. Future operations should also be strictly controlled under the Environment Agency's permitting regime. It's considered, therefore, that odour is capable of being effectively controlled given the design of the site and these control measures available under the both regulatory regimes, planning and environmental permitting. Regarding traffic, the applicants confirmed the proposals would involve just one return movement per day. This would replace current equivalent movements of non-waste feedstock, giving no net increase in traffic. Volumes of feedstock and digestate and the nature of on-site operations would remain unaffected, so there are no objections on other technical grounds from the technical consultees. As such, the proposals are considered to be sustainable and approval is recommended subject to conditions set out in Appendix 1. There are a couple of points of clarification, Chair. In paragraph 2.1, Grow Continental is referred to as the applicant. Of course, the site has been acquired by a new company, Agro Merchants Whitchurch, in the last couple of years. They continue to be the energy end user from the site. In paragraph 626 of the report, the poultry manure is imported to an undercover store on a farm at Burlton from a nearby poultry site where dry heating is used, thereby reducing the ammonia content of the manure. In paragraph 627, the digestate lagoons have not yet been constructed, and indeed they would need to be covered under the environment permit were they so to be. At present, digestates pumped into mobile sealed buffer tanks on the site and stored prior to export from the site by a tanker. Liquid digestate is therefore not exposed to the air until off-site and when it's spread. Then paragraph 811 refers to a judicial review period of 3 months. This should in fact read 6 weeks. And condition 7A should refer to 11,000 tonnes and not 17,000 tonnes as the limit for the manure. Apologies for that. Additionally, in Appendix 1, proposed condition 19 is no longer relevant as permission 1604784 VAR granted in 2017 secured the use of two digestate tanks. I've updated the wording of condition 14 such that if the committee wishes to include the additional section on this to provide further clarity on odour mitigation and control, then it can be done so. The first wording requires submission of an updated odour management plan. The second bit, which I would suggest members may wish to add, reads as follows. In the event that an odour complaint is received and is subsequently validated by the local planning authority, the applicant shall undertake a formal investigation to determine the cause of the complaint and shall put forward a mitigation scheme and implementation timescale within 1 week of notification to this effect by the authority. The scheme shall be implemented in accordance with the approved details. This shall include, where appropriate, cessation of manure importation until the approved mitigation scheme has been implemented. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether we've seen all the slides yet. Perhaps if we can just go through those very, very quickly, if we haven't seen them. Could we go to the next slide, please? Sorry, thank you. Yeah. So this is the location of the site. Can we just move through to the next site? You'll see it's just on the edge of the Whitchurch bypass by the Waymills estate. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is the layout of the site. You'll see to the southwest of that, or the bottom right, the two digestate lagoons which have not been constructed yet. And you'll also see in the western side there is screening of the sites. We can just move to the next slide. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this shows the site as seen from the interior and also from the bund where planting has now established quite well, the bottom right photo. So just give an idea of the appearance of the site. And moving to the next slide, please, that just finally shows the situation with the site access, which has been newly constructed or recently constructed. Thank you, Chair. That completes my my comments so far on the application.
Thank you, Graham. Now, any public speakers on this matter have submitted written statements to be read out in accordance with the revised procedure for public speaking. The local member may read their own or may have elected for the solicitor to also read theirs. Can the solicitor now read out any statements, please?
Chair, Miranda Garrard speaking. The first statement is from the local member, Councillor Dakin, and he's asked to read his own out, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dakin.
Thank you, Chair. This site has been operating very efficiently for the last 3 years. There have been in the early days complaints of smells, but on investigation, these smells have been caused by activities not necessarily associated with this plant. The new application causes me some concern, however, because of the potential for chicken manure to cause really obnoxious odours. If the plant and operations are not carried out in a really organised method, this could be a problem. Whilst I agree that using animal waste would be a better way to feed the AD, it must be conditioned to make it as odour-free as possible and not cause a nuisance to any dwellings in the area. Condition 14 helps with this. However, I would like to strengthen this with the condition 14A. This to read, odour within the site is controlled by the Environmental Agency, and under the permit issued earlier this year, the amount of manure must increase gradually from 5 tonnes to the daily level of 29 tonnes proposed by the application. If the odour becomes a problem during the phased introduction of animal waste, then the agency would have the option of halting the waste importation until any odour issue is resolved. Additionally, Shropshire Council Regulatory Services control odour through statutory nuisance provision of the Environment Act and should be able to close down the operation until the problem is under control. I believe if this condition 14A this condition 14A should be able to control the operation of this site. So I would request, please, that you include condition 14A should permission be granted. However, having just heard the officer speak, I think perhaps he could put it in better words than I, but I think we both know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dakin. Miranda, are there any others?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Miranda Garrard speaking. We have a response from the agent for the applicant, Nick Williams, and he states, "Good afternoon, members. On behalf of the applicant, I can respond to Councillor Dakin's comments as follows. The plant has indeed been operating very efficiently for 3 years, providing renewable electricity, heat and jobs for the local community, both directly and indirectly. There have been no substantiated odour complaints in the time the plant has been operational. This application now proposes the introduction of poultry manure as a waste feedstock. No other waste feedstocks are proposed. The introduction of this manure as feedstock means the site will be regulated by the Environment Agency through the EA permit controlling the site. Because no waste products formed part of the previous feedstock mix, an EA permit was not required, and the Environment Agency were not required to regulate the site. The addition of the manure therefore adds an additional layer of regulation and amenity protection through the EA. If odour were to ever become an issue, the operator would have the chance to resolve any issues, and ultimately, if an issue could not be resolved, the EA have the authority to prevent the site from operating. Councillor Dakin has suggested an addition to proposed condition 14, which relates to odour control and the provision of an odour management plan. An odour management plan is already in place in line with the EA permit. Following Councillor Dakin's comments and a discussion with the case officer, I can confirm the applicant would be accepting of a second part to this condition, which will cover a complaints procedure and site monitoring. I can clarify that in line with the permit, the poultry manure will be gradually introduced and the EA will regulate this. If odour were to become a problem during the phased introduction of poultry manure, the EA would be able to halt the importation until any issues are resolved. The permit also requires pre-operational measures which must take place prior to the acceptance of waste, including submission of the final environmental management system, an EMS. The EMS will cover odour and will ensure the site operates in accordance with best available techniques. The poultry manure will be delivered to the site just in time, will be fed into the sealed digester on delivery, and following digestion will be separated, with the liquid fraction going to sealed mobile buffer tanks, before being exported from the site in sealed tankers. The same vehicle delivering the poultry manure will be utilised to remove the solid digestate. This process provides very little opportunity for odour release, and as such, odour emissions are not expected to be adverse or unacceptable. The introduction of the poultry manure as a feedstock will replace crop feedstocks, enhancing the sustainability of the operation. The site will now operate in accordance with the permit and will be regulated by the EA to ensure no unacceptable amenity impacts. Approval of the application will allow the site to continue to positively contribute to the local area through the renewable energy and economic benefits it brings to the wider community. That's the end of that statement, Chair, and the final statement that I have.
Thank you, Miranda. Now I'm going to come back to Graham French. Does the planning officer wish to clarify any points that have been raised in those statements, please?
Just to clarify, Chair, the reference to the condition 14B, in fact, it would be an expansion of the current condition, which requires the submission of a new odour management plan, an updated odour management plan. And as the agent has identified, it would involve provision for a complaints procedure and a mitigation mechanism should any complaints arise and be validated. Yeah, I think that sort of just covers that point, Chair. Thank you. There's nothing else.
Thank you. And just before I open this up to members, just one point for me to clarify. Councillor Dakin has said in his suggestion for 14A, which would actually be 14B, that the operation, if the odours were too bad, would close down the operation, I think was the term that he used. I assume that this would actually not be possible. What actually in effect would be meant would be the cessation of bringing in a poultry manure. I don't think you can just shut an AD down, can you?
Can I respond to that, Chair? Graham French, Principal Planner. Yes, certainly the site would not be shut down, but the option of reducing or preventing the importation of manure would occur. Now, this would occur both automatically under the waste site licence, where, the environmental permit, where we have heard that the amount of manure would be phased in, as Councillor Dakin has identified. So it would start at a lower level, and if any issues were identified, then the agency could sort of cease the subsequent importation until that had been resolved. But we have a double opportunity for control here, because that is under the permit. The planning condition would also, condition 14B, would also require that potentially the importation of manure ceased in the event of any validated complaints being received until those issues had been resolved. So as I say, we originally had just the planning regime and the statutory nuisance. Now we have the environmental permitting regime as an additional control layer within the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm now going to open the debate up for the committee.
Chairman, can I just, because I'm leaving the meeting at this point.
Sorry, Councillor Dakin, you've said your piece. I don't think you're allowed to participate now.
I'm just saying I'm leaving now. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I'll now open up the debate for the committee to comment. Please indicate using the chat function if you wish to speak. 2 members have already. I have seen that. The solicitor will let me know who is next to speak. Speak in turn as you are requested to do so. And I would ask, as this is a live meeting, that councillors remember to introduce themselves before they begin speaking. I believe at the moment we've got councillors Nick Bardsley and Pam Mosley. Councillor Bardsley.
Thank you, Chair. Nick Bardsley, Councillor for Wright 11 Towns and Basschurch. I'd like just to spend a moment or two, if I may, on condition 29A and B, the annual review, which seems to me to be an eminently sensible proposal, because clearly there are quite a number of changes proposed if this planning permission is granted. And it isn't just in relation to the operation of the plant itself, although that's clearly very significant, and there is the potential, for example, in an emergency for the storage of untreated animal waste. You know, you can imagine in really bad weather it might be for a day or two, and that would probably be nobody's fault, but nonetheless it could cause considerable disquiet locally. I think the traffic is potentially another issue, and as I say, I think the idea of having an annual review of the operations is extremely sensible. What I'd like to suggest, Chair, is that that annual review meeting isn't just planning officers and the operator, but that it involves also the town council and the local member. What I'm thinking of is the sort of review group, and Miranda Garrod will be familiar with this, that was set up when the major development of the ABP plant in Hordley near Ellesmere was given planning permission some years ago. There is a very successful liaison group which I happen to chair, which involves parish councillors from a number of different parishes. Initially the group met fairly frequently, now it meets a couple of times a year, and it ranges over the sort of issues, noise, smell, traffic, that might apply here. And it seemed to me to be a very good way of channeling local concerns within a structured format. As I say, it's worked extremely well. I think the liaison group for the ABP plant in Hordley has been going 5 or 6 years. As I say, initially lots of meetings involving directors flying over from Ireland and all that sort of thing. It's settled down, it works very well, and my feeling is that parish councillors and certainly I as local Shropshire councillor feel that it works extremely well. If I could suggest, that might be a good way of channeling local concerns in a constructive way, and indeed monitoring all the things that need monitoring. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley.
Thank you, Chair. Pam Mosley, I represent Montmoor in Shrewsbury. A couple of things on here. The report states that Shropshire Council's regulatory services don't object, but in actual fact, paragraph 4.3 on page 4 says that actually there's no comment, not no objection. I find it quite unusual that a report dealing with the matters we're considering today doesn't have a comment from regulatory services. I would have thought they would have been one of the most important commenters on this. I'd like a bit of explanation on that, and there's a whole list of other departments which haven't commented too. So I'd like an explanation really why that's happened or hasn't happened in this case, and why we haven't got a comment particularly from regulatory services. The other comment is in paragraph 626 little 1, it states that there's a single source of poultry manure coming from a farm in Bilton, and that's superior in some way because of the heating method they use to dry out the chicken poo before it's shipped over, which reduces the amount of ammonia and its noxiousness. But there's nothing in the conditions. I can see it would be unusual to have it stated that a particular farm had to be the only supplier for this material, but there's nothing there which I thought could go in, which could state that were we to grant consent, that the manure which is shipped over has been heat treated in this way, because by what they say, it does actually ameliorate the problem, some of the problems of the odour. So could that be conditioned that wherever it comes from, it has to have this heat treatment before it is brought over to the site? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley. Councillor Mark Jones.
Yes, Councillor Mark Jones, Councillor for Gaboyne, Westerrin and Salatin. I'm more concerned about the amount of travelling that's being done from this farm in Burlton. We at the moment have a lot of problems with tractors in Shropshire, huge tractors. I mean, this would be a huge tractor with a large load of manure coming from Burlton. I'm not entirely sure how you get from Burlton to Whitchurch, but I think you'd have to cross through Loppington. You're coming through villages with large loads, which I'd prefer not to happen. I'm happy for the manure to be taken there, but can it not be done from somewhere a lot nearer? Because obviously this is going to cause quite a bit more traffic every day, and it's large traffic too. So that would be my comment. Obviously the manure is from a particular method of drying it, underfloor heating, I presume the birds have got. I mean, there must be 10 to 15 other farms within a 5-mile radius of Whitchurch that could probably supply something. I don't know whether it be similar or not. So that would be my ask, whether it could be brought from somewhere a lot nearer to reduce the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got an indication from Councillor David Vasmer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Councillor Vasmer, you were late joining the meeting. Could I ask first, as I've seen nothing on chat, for you to indicate whether you have any peculiar interest of any items on the agenda, please?
I have no peculiar items. I did join just at the very beginning of the meeting. I have heard the whole of this debate, so I think it's perfectly reasonable for me to make a comment about it.
I have absolutely no issue with that, which is why I was inviting you to speak. I just didn't hear you at the beginning introduce yourself and say whether you had any pecuniary interests along with the other councillors. So that now taken care of. Councillor Vasmer, you're next to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I just like some clarity, really. I'm a bit confused, and this may be me, but we had a proposal. The officer, when introducing this item, actually talked about and 14A. Councillor Dakin made reference to an additional item, which I think probably he said it was 14A, but I think it's probably going to be 14B. And also the agent made reference to additional item under 14. I just wanted, I'm a bit confused as to where we are with all these amendments to the full paragraph condition 14, and I wonder if the officer could just enlighten me, maybe benefit other members as well.
Thank you very much. Now, I've not got anybody else down at the moment to speak. Just before I bring Graham French as the principal officer on this to comment, just a few points that I've picked up in that. Firstly, my understanding is that from the presentation that there will be no extra vehicular movements coming in. At present, I believe they're bringing in whey from Belton, and instead they're going to bring in dried chicken manure, and it's a direct one-for-one swap. My understanding also is that will be in sealed containers, and it will be pumped into sealed containers to hold it on site. So at no stage will the raw product be exposed to the local community. Now I'm going to bring in Graham French just to make sure that those points that I've picked up are right, and to clarify any further points he feels he needs to. Graham.
Thank you, Graham French speaking here. Yes, it is indeed correct that there would be no net increase in vehicle movements because the movements coming from Belton with the poultry manure are offsetting pre-existing movements of non-agricultural waste feedstocks. So in terms of suggestion that we might wish to condition this as a single source of poultry manure, Councillor Mosley has suggested. We have a further clarification from the agent that it would only come from the Belton farm location, and as such, whilst we're not recommending a particular condition to specifically prescribe that, it is in the submitted application details that it would be just coming from Belton, so that covers that. Regarding the fact that we haven't had comments from regulatory services, we have obviously consulted them on the application, and additionally regulatory services screen all applications so that if we don't expressly consult them, they have the opportunity to actually comment on them from their screening of the weekly lists. Now, they haven't chosen to comment. They haven't actually objected to previous applications, and I think that they would have a role and opportunity to become involved through their statutory nuisance regulations, should that be the case. But no, I mean, I have to say we don't have comments. In an ideal world, it would have been good to have their comments. However, I think that the information the applicant has provided, confirming the very well contained nature of the poultry manure, that it's covered all the way from Belton into the site, and that the digestate also is exported out in airtight tankers, plus the additional reassurance we have with condition 14 and condition 14B should give members the level of reassurance necessary, even in the absence of any express comments from regulatory services. If I could just pick up on the suggestion of, with reference to the annual review process, and the suggestion that there might be a local liaison group, such as with ABP, I would have to say that the two are sort of different elements. The annual review condition is something which is conditionable. Convening a local liaison group would require a legal agreement in order to secure that, because it isn't something that a planning condition could necessarily secure on its own. However, I think that the wording of that particular condition is quite flexible, and I think there most certainly is the option of involving third parties in the annual review process as it takes place. So I wouldn't have thought it would be necessarily appropriate to engage directly with objectors, local residential objectors, although that could be considered. But certainly I think the idea of involving Whitchurch Town Council, should they wish to attend the annual review meeting, is something that can most certainly be pursued under the wording of the existing condition. So that really, yes, in terms, the only other point regarding clarity on condition 14 and Councillor Dakin's observations, just to add that it is the environmental permit requirement that the level of importation of manure should be increased progressively from a low base level. It isn't something that we're advocating as a duplicate under condition 14A. 14B, what we're advocating is that the requirement for an updated odour management plan is formally backed up with a requirement for investigation of any complaints that are validated, and a requirement to submit mitigation measures which could involve cessation of importation of manure whilst the problem is being investigated. That gives a kind of double bite of the cherry, as it were, because the Environment Agency can also cease poultry manure importation under their permitting regime. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, that's a rather long response there.
Thank you very much, Graham. It's certainly not a cherry I would want to bite. I think members do need to remember that this facility did cause a lot of angst when we saw it on this committee a number of years ago. It has been successfully operating for 3 years, and as the local member has said in his speech, that there were some concerns at the beginning, but it turned out that that was probably more likely to be manure being spread locally than it was to do with the AD. I have got Councillor Roy Oldcroft and then Councillor Nick Bardsley. Councillor Aldcroft.
Yes, Chair. As a council, we're supposed to be going green, as they say, and this is what you might call a green energy factory. So we should be looking at ways in which we can make this happen. The fact it's close to various residences, etc., and there are concerns about odours, which can be mitigated. We're talking more on monitoring, joint monitoring by environmental and also local council and council officials. We're talking about a gradual start to this addition, with possible stops along the way if there are problems. This low base start and the monitoring and the visibility display, I notice from both the photographs and actually travelling that road myself, I don't see a great problem with traffic turning in and out of there. I think if we can find a solution through Graham to the wording for the conditions there, either a combination of what you've got already and a little bit of the two other suggestions that have been made, I would have no objection to this plan at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will reiterate to members, this has been up and running for 3 years. So anyway, Councillor Bardsley.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just pick up Nick Bardsley, Wrighton and Baschurch? Can I just pick up on the very helpful response from the planning officer and ask whether, in his opinion and Miranda's opinion, we need slightly to amend 29A just to make it possible for a representative from Whitchurch Town Council and the local Shropshire councillor to be involved in the annual review meeting. I do think I take the point that a formal liaison group, the ABP Hordley one, was set up through a Section 106 agreement, and I'm not suggesting that here, but it does seem to me that it would be a very good forum for the town council and the local member, who will clearly have complaints channeled to him, to raise operational difficulties. As well, you know, there'll be benefits. It's a very useful way of dealing with the practical difficulties that can arise, Chair, and I would commend it to the committee. And it seemed to me that the principal planning officer was saying that this can be done. It seems to me a very small amendment to 29A, so that it says involving the operator to the local planning authority and including a representative from the town council and the local Shropshire councillor shall be held. Just to add those words in so that the annual review gives that opportunity for local people to feed into that process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor David Vasmer. And then I'm going to go back to Graham French to round up what he's heard, because I think we're all reading off the same page at the moment, just saying it slightly differently. Councillor Vasmer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with that comment. I support what Councillor Bardsley said about 29. The condition 14, I still don't quite understand. Well, I want to make sure that my understanding is correct as far as the proposals are concerned, because it seems to me there's been a lot of discussion around odour control, and seems to be some useful conditions being proposed, but I want to make sure that I know exactly what we're voting for as far as 14A and 14B is concerned. So I wonder perhaps if the solicitor can comment about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Right. It's going to be a team effort here, I think, probably from Miranda and from Graham French. Let's see if we can get 29 and 14B worded in a way that's acceptable to members, and then we will perhaps get somebody who is prepared to make a movement. Thank you. Graham and Miranda.
Can I go first, please, Chair? Graham here. Regarding the 29, the liaison meeting, yes, I think that it's certainly possible to amend the wording of condition 29A. What I would suggest, though, because I don't think that we would want to burden Whitchurch Town Council with the responsibility to attend every liaison meeting in perpetuity. I think that it would be appropriate if we use the term invite Whitchurch Town Council to future liaison meetings as part of the wording of that condition. So an annual review meeting involving the operator and the local planning authority with provision to invite Whitchurch Town Council shall be held in order to review performance of the site, etc. Regarding condition 14B, I can again reiterate the section that I read out at the beginning of my presentation on this, Chair. I don't know if you want me to read it out again, but essentially it
I think you'll need to read it out again, Graham, because obviously there has been some confusion. There is 14 and there will be 14B, and 14B is the added bit and this is 14B. Graham.
Okay. So in the event that an odour complaint is received and is subsequently validated by the local planning authority, the applicant shall undertake a formal investigation to determine the cause of the complaint and shall put forward a mitigation scheme and implementation timescale within 1 week of notification to this effect by the authority. The scheme shall be implemented in accordance with the approved details. This shall include, where appropriate, cessation of manure importation until the approved mitigation scheme has been implemented.
Okay, Miranda, have you got anything to add?
Just briefly, with 29A, I would suggest that you add invite the local councillor. I think Councillor Bardsley wanted the local Shropshire councillor invited also. I would concur with invite because a condition can't compel a third party to do anything, but obviously we can ask for them to be invited. Whether they attend or not is up to them. And with 14B, just for clarity, the bit about the phasing in of the feedstock is controlled by the permit from the Environment Agency, and we are exhorted by national policy not to duplicate controls. So we don't need to put that bit in a condition because it's in the permit, as Graham explained. So Graham's condition proposal is having taken into account all those various comments we've heard, and that's the proposed recommendation in terms of how we amend that condition.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillors Vasma and Bardsley, are you happy with what you have heard? Or as happy as you can be?
Absolutely, Chair. Thank you for
Thank
that. I think it'll be a useful addition.
Thank you, Councillor Bardsley. Councillor Vasma.
Yes, I'm happy with that. Yes.
Good. Do I therefore then have somebody who is prepared to move the officer's recommendation, taking on board the changes to 29 and the addition of 14B? Well, I will propose it from the chair then, that we accept those, taking on board those two changes.
And I'll
Is that
second that. I'll
Thank you,
second
Councillor
that.
Bardsley.
Sorry.
Yep, seconded by Councillor Bardsley.
Right.
Okay, Solicitor, we'll now take the vote. The Solicitor will read out the names of the committee members present and entitled to vote, and then confirm the result of the vote. Miranda.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is proposed to go with the officer's recommendation to approve this in accordance with the conditions and changes that you have heard. Can you please tell me if you are for or against? Councillor Aldcroft.
For.
Councillor Bardsley.
For.
Councillor D.
For.
Councillor Green.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Mosley.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Vasma.
For.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Thank you. That is unanimous because Councillor Wynne is not voting, and neither is Councillor Dakin on this matter.
Thank you, everybody. I will now be passing back to the proper chair, Councillor Wynne, for item 6 and beyond. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Vince, for doing that. Right, so now we can move to item 6, proposed dwelling at 28 Grove Crescent, War. Can the planning officer present this item, please?
Chair, before we continue, may I make a statement? Just to say, I am the divisional county councillor for that area.
Yes, so you won't be partaking.
Sorry?
You won't be partaking then?
I was going to partake in the debate and the voting if that's permitted.
I don't think you are. Just go to Miranda for that, just a double clarification. Miranda?
So Councillor Allcroft is the local member for this matter. Yeah, he can speak and leave the meeting, so he can't take and vote. But he needs to have submitted a speaking statement in advance of the meeting, as per the revised public speaking protocol for virtual meetings.
Right.
I believe you advised on that, Councillor Allcroft, were you?
Yeah, that's fine.
You haven't done so.
I just wanted to be clear.
Right. Okay, you'll have to leave the meeting. Sorry about that. Okay, okie dokie. Right, we'll go to the planning officer, please. Thank you, Kelvin.
Thank you, Chair. Kelvin Hall, Principal Planner. This is an application for the erection of one self-built 5-bedroom detached dwelling with a link-attached garage, installation of ground-mounted solar panel array, and the formation of vehicle access with associated landscaping works. Next slide, please. The site is located at the southern side of the village of War and within the development boundary of the village, as is defined within the adopted neighbourhood plan for the village. The site lies within the boundary of the planning permission for a housing estate off Grove Crescent, which has recently been built, which is to the southwest of the application area on the plan shown. Next slide. This shows a satellite view of the area, which was taken earlier this year when the adjacent housing estate was being constructed. The application site is just to the northeast of the housing estate. Yeah, that's right, with where the cursor, and is occupied at the present by a derelict barn, which you can see in the photograph. Land to the north and east is countryside outside of the development boundary and in agricultural use. Next slide. The dwelling will be sited over the footprint of the derelict barn as shown on this plan. The development includes attached garages, ground-mounted solar panels to the western side of the site, a pond to the east, and landscaping around the perimeter of the site. The site will be accessed as shown to the south, which links into the estate road of the new estate. Next slide. The floor plans, ground floor would include lounge, dining room, kitchen, family room, utility, a link room between the house and the garage, and then a triple garage to the, as you can see on the left hand side. First floor would have 5 bedrooms, 2 with ensuite and a main bathroom. Next slide. These are the elevations. So it's a 2-storey dwelling with a single-storey link to the side, linking to the garages on the left-hand side, the top left drawing. You can see there'll be extensive glazing on the ground floor level and part of the first floor as well. Materials would be to be agreed, but they are shown as being brick walls and clay roof tiles. Next slide. So these are some of the photos. This is the existing barn on the site, which is to be demolished. Next slide. This is the applicant's photo montage. The top one shows you can just see the position of the derelict barn just to the left of the hoarding, which will be demolished, and then the lower photograph is a artist impression of the proposed dwelling in its place. Next slide. And these are some of the photos taken from the applicant's landscape and visual impact assessment. The top photo shows how the site levels are lower than the existing estate to the east, to the right hand side. The bottom photo shows the view of the estate from the public road, and the application site is just to the right hand side of that, just where the tree is. Next slide. This is showing the current application site plan on the left, which we showed earlier, and then this is shown in relation to the existing approved plan for the estate. You'll see that the approved plan showed the application site land in white to be undeveloped, with the derelict barn being retained, which I'll explain further in a minute. But this plan shows that there is no impact proposed to the existing open space, which is approved under the approved plans for the housing estate. So in terms of then the officer appraisal, there are no objections to the proposal from technical consultees. However, the parish council have objected. There's been one objection from a local resident. In terms of the parish council's concerns, these are set out in 4.2.1. These include the loss of the recreational facility and open space, inappropriateness of laurel as a hedgerow plant, and the fact that the footprint of the house will be far larger than the existing barn, which is single story. Members should note that the application would maintain the existing level of open space. I think there has been perhaps some confusion in that when the outline application was submitted for the housing estate, the indicative plans did suggest that the derelict barn could be converted to a clubhouse or rebuilt as a clubhouse, but that proposal was not carried forward, and the approved plans show that the site is being undeveloped and not forming part of the public open space which has been approved to the southwest. In terms of landscaping and the parish council's comments, I understand that some landscaping has been taken place, including laurel hedge, but this is on land around the back of the site, which is outside of the current application site. As part of the current application, there are trees and hedgerows proposed to be planted, as you can see on the left-hand side plan. There is a condition to agree the types of species to be planted as part of that landscaping scheme. I just want to clarify one matter as well that needs to be just to be confirmed. In terms of the fencing on the site, at present there's a 1.8 metre high close board fencing either side of the access road into the application site. The application documents state that one of the benefits of this current proposal is that this will be replaced with a 1.2 metre high post and rail fencing and therefore provide increased openness. But members should note that this close board fencing isn't approved, and the approved plan is that it should be 1.2 metres post and rail fencing anyway. So I think the report is based upon the application suggestion that this is a benefit to the scheme, but this is clearly not the case, because at the moment that close board fencing has been undertaken. I spoke to the applicant this morning, and he confirmed that the close board fencing had been put up as security measures to prevent public access into the derelict barn. But in terms of the current application, if it's permitted, then that close board fencing would be removed and replaced by the post and rail fencing. There is a wildlife buffer strip around the back of the site that will be retained as well as part of the current application. That doesn't form any public access anyway. As you can see, the shape of the application site and also the site that's being retained as undeveloped on the right hand side is exactly the same, and therefore there's no impact on the amount of open space being provided or the ecological area to the left hand side of the site. In terms of visual impacts, as you saw earlier, the land is set at a lower level than the adjacent estate. Although it would be of a larger size than the derelict barn, officers consider that it would not be visually dominant in the area and feel that the design and scale is also acceptable. Other than the Parish Council, there's only been one public objection, and there have been 13 letters of support, and 10 of these are from residents of the adjoining housing estates. In conclusion, officers consider that planning permission can be granted subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you, Chair.
You're on mute, Paul.
Chair, on mute.
I apologise for that. Right, to read out the speaking statements and indicate if the local members has elected to read their own. So Miranda, is there any statements to be read out?
Yes, Chair, I have two statements. The first being from War Parish Council, and they state, War Parish Council objects to the above planning application and wish to reiterate its reasoning as follows. Planning application 1204496 OUT included the provision of open space, parking and a clubhouse, as well as development of a wildlife corridor. Further planning application 16013772 VAR, approved on the 24th of November 2016, included condition number 2, approved drawings, allowed for an amended site layout and included replacement of the recreational facility by a landscaped area, pond and larger wildlife corridor. Questions raised by the then planning officer to the developer's agent on the 23rd of August 2016 included responses that this land will not be adopted as public open space. Responsibility for the open space will be in the hands of a management company. To include manage the open space, the ecology plan are designed to run in perpetuity. There will be no cut-off date after 5 years. Therefore, it is WPC's contention that the granting of permission in respect of the current application would render completion of the development by permissions numbers 1204496 OUT and 1601372 VAR impossible, and having been implemented, cannot be abandoned. Also, the provision of open space in connection with new housing developments is addressed in SAMDEV, and request the comments and observations at paragraph 4.1.2 of the report by the planning officer who dealt with planning application number 1601372 VAR, and in particular the inclusion of open space for health and well-being of local residents. WPC therefore feel if planning enforcement officers had applied condition number 2 of 1601372, no planning application would have been permitted for this area of land. We refer to planning application 1903631 FUL, 27th of August 2019, which was withdrawn after consultation the planning officers had with the developer, and we refer to, quote, you made clear points about the open space that has been provided in that it was not presently open and available for use. The area is locked and secured until next spring to allow the grass and flowers to establish themselves, end quote. We take this that the developer acknowledges that the land is open space. Prior to the above withdrawn application, the case officer advised the developer on 16th of October 2019 that, quote, that the proposed scheme will extend domestic development further out away from the village's built-up area and cannot be looked upon as infill development, end quote. WPC advised that whatever the size of the development proposed, this does not change this. Also, it is the opinion of WPC that this application does not comply with War Neighbourhood Plan 2016 to 2036 as adopted, and all applications for planning permission must be determined in accordance with this plan. Listed policy HOU2 housing development, subsection A, policy HOU3 design, A and F and I, policy COM3 local green spaces, and evidence and justifications, paragraphs 9.9 and 9.11. We hope that the Northern Planning Team will support the reasoning and evidence provided and refuse this planning application, and recommend that the developer applies condition number 2 of 16.01372 VAR and provides the landscape area, pond and a larger wildlife corridor as proposed. That's the end of the War Parish Council statement, Chair. The next statement is from the applicant, Mr. Craven, and he states, "Good afternoon. I am the applicant and also the Managing Director of Oakengate Limited, who is responsible for the recently completed hedgerows development on the adjacent land. I'm immensely proud of what has been achieved at the hedgerows. The new homes are of the highest standard and have been incredibly popular, especially with young families. The 3 affordable homes were taken up very quickly, and the measures to encourage biodiversity are bearing fruit. You now have a proposal before you to complete that highly successful development. On the face of it, the application is for a single dwelling within a residential area. However, to me, it is much more. It's the culmination of 18 months' work to create my dream home in an area that I want to move to. You'll see that the application has the support of many local residents. All statutory consultees raise no objection. Your officers also recommend that the application be approved. The Parish Council is, however, critical of the proposal. They say that the application site should otherwise be public open space and that it conflicts with the War Neighbourhood Plan, WNP. Let me address each of their concerns in turn. Firstly, the application site forms no part of the open space, landscaping or wildlife corridor that was approved for the hedgerows scheme. You'll see from the relevant plans, references P05 revision AA and P10 revision E, that the application site in its entirety is excluded from these green areas. The hedgerows scheme has been completed in full compliance with these plans, which supersede the site layout plan at the earlier outline stage. I can say unequivocally that the landscape area, pond, wildlife area and corridor approved under application 16.01372 VAR have been provided as approved. Consequently, the outcome of this application, one way or the other, will have no effect on the public open space available to local residents and others. It will, as officers acknowledge, significantly improve local landscape character and the visual amenity of the area. Secondly, it is precisely because of the feedback from officers and the rigorous policies of the WNP that the proposal has been the subject of an independent and thorough landscape and visual appraisal. When tested against both the WNP and the local plan, the appraisal concludes that not only is the scheme acceptable, but also it will give a softer and sympathetic edge to the settlement and improve the visual connection with the landscape. Policy HOU2. The design of the new home has been assessed by officers and found to be in keeping with the character of the area. A condition can cover the native mix of plants, WNP policy HOU3. As the site is not identified as a designated area of local green space, WNP policy COM3 and paragraph 9.11 are not relevant. For all of these reasons, I believe the proposal will have no effect on the public open space. The open space will continue to contribute to the well-being and health of its users, 9.9, and is policy compliant. A fenced-off, derelict and dangerous structure will be replaced by a high-quality new home with landscaped gardens where I intend to live. Thank you. The end of that statement and all of the statements on this matter, Chair.
Thank you, Miranda. Does the planning officer wish to clarify any points in response?
Yeah, Kelvin Hall, Principal Planner. Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just one thing. I think the part of the confusion might be in relation to the plan that the Parish Council refers to in in their comments in the committee report on page 30, they've referred to a plan P05 revision Y as being the development layout, but that wasn't an approved plan. There was a subsequent one that was approved, which was revision AA, which had a different extent of open space, which coincides with what is on the two plans that I showed you on the last slide. And if we look at that last slide again, can we have that last slide again, please? The very last one. That's the one. Yeah, this clearly shows the approved layout of the housing estate on the right, and the elements in yellow and light green are the open space. The yellow is public open space and the light green is a wildlife area, and that is the same area as shown on the current application on the left hand side. So there's no, the current application doesn't have any impact on the extent of the approved layout of the open space in the wildlife corridor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. We needed that clarification. Okay, members of the committee, can you now comment, please, by using your chat function, and the solicitor will let me know who's to speak first.
Chair, the first request is from Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Hunt.
Councillor Vince Hunt. One of the things that's been highlighted in some of the information is that there's been a number, circa 11 if memory serves me correctly, of letters of or public support for this particular thing, a lot of which have been based around tidying up the area, because at the moment it's a bit of an eyesore. Are any of those actually, and I also understand that a number of these properties are yet to sell on this development. Can officers let me know, please, if any of those have been people who actually, or if they know, who actually live on that development?
Shall we do 1 point at a time? Kelvin, do you want to come back on that one?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, there are 13 letters of support, and 10 of these have come from either the new estate to the southwest or the Grove, or the existing Grove Crescent estate to the west, which you can just see on the left hand side of the plan there on the right. And the other 3 have come from people within walking distance of the site, so they're all local residents who have submitted their letters of support. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Thank you.
Okay, next one.
There are no other current indications, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, Councillor Pam Mosley's just indicated.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley.
Thank you, Chair. Pam Mosley, Montmoor and Shrewsbury. The one objector that did put any words together toward opposing this was obviously someone to do with bird conservation, and made particular reference to the presence of barn owls, understandably, in this barn. Now, barn owls are obviously quite a rare species, and hopefully we will be able to provide mitigation for these creatures. But condition 9 relates to bird box provision, but it's all for smaller species that mention sparrows, swifts, starlings and house martins. And there's nothing to say what is going to be done to, I don't know what you do with barn owls, encourage them to find another home, provide something for them. And I felt this was quite an important issue, really. And I wondered if the officer could explain what in ecological terms can be done about the presence of a barn owl group, colony, pair, I don't know what pairs, I guess, in the barn. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley. Right, we'll take one at a time. So yeah, we'll come back to you, Kelvin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Kelvin Hall. ecological issues were looked at as part of the original housing estate development, and there was an ecological report submitted. There was also an update report submitted as part of the current application as well. There is an ecological mitigation plan that has been agreed as part of the approved plans, and that includes mitigation for a variety of species, including barn owl. If you can see on the plan on the right hand side there, in the wildlife area, which is like the mid-green colour on the left hand side, there's like a square box, a grey box, just to the that's it, yeah, where the cursor is. That's a wildlife tower, and that's been approved for a number of species, including a hibernation area for bats, but also it's been designed in line with guidance from the Barn Owl Trust as well, to provide shelter for barn owl. So there's been no objection from our ecology team, and that wildlife area is being developed in accordance with the approved plans, and it would be managed as part of the approved ecological mitigation plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that clarification, Calvin. It's okay, Councillor Mosley.
Thank you, Chair. I've missed that if it was in the details. Apologies. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much. Anybody else indicated?
It's Councillor Hunt, followed by Councillor Vasma, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Well, I was actually going to make a proposal, Chair, but I'm quite happy to wait until after Councillor Vasmir to hear what he has to say.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll go straight to Councillor Vasmir.
Well, I support this application actually, and I would also like to suggest we make a proposal. I think there's confusion as far as the boundary of the site is concerned, which results in the parish council objection. And I think the provision made for open space and wildlife corridor is excellent, really. So I'd like to propose that we support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you for that, Councillor Vasmir.
Oh, I knew I should have gone first. I'm quite happy to second that, Chair.
I was going to leave it to the end, but nobody else indicated. So yes, Vince, I presume you shall.
As per what I just said, yes, I'm happy to second.
If we've got no more comments, does the planning officer or the solicitor wish to clarify anything?
Not from me, Chair.
Okay.
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. So if there's no more speakers, please can I have the proposed and seconded, which you've done. Will we now take the vote? The solicitor will read out the names of the committee members in turn. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, Chair. Proposal to go with the officer's recommendation. I will ask for or against. Councillor Bardsley.
Sorry, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Dakin.
4.
Councillor D.
4.
Councillor Green.
4.
Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Mosley.
4.
Councillor Roberts.
4.
Councillor Vasma.
4.
Councillor Hunt.
4.
Councillor Wynne.
4.
Chair, that is unanimous.
Right, just to confirm it, that is unanimous. It has been passed. Okay, now she'll move on to item 7, land adjacent to Golf House Lane, Priest Heath. Can the planning officer present this item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Philip Molyneux, Principal Planner. This application proposes erection of 48 dwellings to consist of 23 open market dwellings and 25 as affordable dwellings, along with a new vehicle access off the A49 public highway, on site and public open space provision. Members' attention is drawn to the update sheet and the response from the applicants with regards to affordable housing provision and suggested conditions. I'd just like to remind members that the reference to the suggested conditions is covered in the Section 106 agreement, which members will see is mentioned in the conclusion to the report. First slide, please. Application site is outlined in red to the western side of the A49, from where access is to be obtained alongside an existing restaurant, fish and chip shop, beyond which is a fuel filling station and parking area popular for overnight stays by HGVs. That is to the north of the site, not far off the roundabout of the A49 and A41 where they converge. To the west of the site is Gulf House Lane, which is an unadopted track alongside which is a scattering of individual dwellings. This lane also runs to the south of the site, and beyond this lane is open farmland. Next slide, please. This is the site layout plan indicating the layout of the proposed dwellings, with the open space to the eastern side of the site behind the fuel filling station, which directly abuts the A49. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the affordable housing coloured in pink and the unencumbered coloured in blue. So obviously it's well above the requirement for a provision of affordable housing. Next slide, please. Right, now follows a range of slides indicating the type of dwellings to be provided on site, which are a mixture of 2-storey, mainly detached and semi-detached dwellings. There is one block of 3 in a terrace. There's the following 3 slides indicate sample of these. If we could go through them, please. This is one example of a detached dwelling. Next one, please. This one indicates a pair of semi-detached. And the final one, please. Again, pair of semi-detached. The landscape strategy is the slide before you now, which indicates tree planting on the open space, which I've indicated is to the east of the site behind the fuel filling station. This is the open space, which will also include in its centre a children's play area and tree and hedge planting alongside the western side with Gulf House Lane. That's the boundary on the western side of the site. Next slide, please. This indicates the type of play area equipment which is proposed to be included as part of the application to be installed on site by the applicants. Next slide. This is an aerial view of the site outlined in red and showing the rest of the settlement and the roads how they converge. The A49 converges onto the roundabout. With the extensive lorry parking area to the northeast of the site, and then the road as it leads out towards Whitchurch. There now follows a number of photographs. If you could have the first setup, please. Right, the first photograph in the top left-hand corner shows the existing access into the site off the A49. The second one on the top there looks to the northern boundary with view from Gulf House Lane looking north. Next one, looking north is the third one, and the fourth one is Gulf House Lane to the south of the site. Gulf House Lane, as I've indicated, is an unadopted highway. Second lot of slides are taken internally. The first one is looking into the site from the rear of the petrol filling station. sorry, I apologise. The first one is internal view to the western boundary. The second one is from the petrol filling station. And then the third one on the bottom is an internal view to the southern boundary. And the final one is taken from the restaurant takeaway on the entrance to the site. This Gleeson model is a unique model of affordable housing provision to Shropshire. And members are advised to pay a particular attention to the section of the officer's appraisal indicated as assessment of market review report, paragraphs 6.212 of the officer's report through to paragraph 6.320 in relation to the affordable housing provision at which not the normal affordable housing will be provided on site, as it will exceed the required provision in accordance with the local plan policy at a discount of 20% market value for first-time purchasers. This, though, will not be in perpetuity, but to the first-time purchasers only. Members' attention is also drawn to the update sheet on this matter and the response received from the applicants, which also explains it in more detail. Now, it must be emphasised, open space provision on site does not comply with the requirements of policy MD2, as indicated in paragraph 6.41 of the officer's report. The requirement is 30 square metres per bedroom. Open space provision on site will amount to 1,984 square metres. And this is an undersupply of 2,157 square metres. And thus the applicants have offered an off-site contribution of 147,923 towards off-site provision. However, Priest Heath does not have any existing open recreational space provision, and this is outlined in paragraph 6.44 of the officer's report. It has been suggested that this off-site provision can be provided towards Priest Heath Common, which is part of the SSI and located on the opposite side of the A49 to the application site at some 67 metres away. This is also addressed in paragraph 6.45 of the report. The commuted sum offered would be via a Section 106 agreement for the benefit of management of the local open space in the long term. There are also ecological concerns in relation to this application, in that the application site is within close proximity to the Priest Heath SSI. It is a site that is important in relation to the nationally scarce silver-studded blue butterfly. And there are concerns about impacts on the ecological balance of the SSI area and potential increase in users of the site for walking, etc. This matter is covered in paragraph 6.102 and 6.103 of the report. Brown Moss is an internationally designated site some 1.3 kilometres to the north, and increased recreational pressures have been identified as a damaging factor in the local plan habitat regulation assessment, and thus a habitat regulation assessment is required. Members will note a copy of this is attached as Appendix 2 to the report. Natural England have been consulted on the habitat regulations assessment and their response is awaited. Detail on this is outlined in paragraph 6.107 of the report. It's noted that Shropshire Council highways, subject to appropriate conditions attached as included in the suggested conditions in Appendix 1, attached to the decision notice, raised no objections to the proposal. Issues in relation to noise and drainage also considered acceptable as discussed in the officer's report. In conclusion, this is a finely balanced application in that it offers an over-provision of affordable housing in accordance with detail as discussed in the report, which is not though the usual format we've been used to here in Shropshire. However, overall, officers consider this to comply with the overall requirements of the NPPF in relation to affordable housing provision. However, as I've touched on, the application falls short on open space provision on site in accordance with policy MD2. Whilst an off-site financial contribution has been offered, this does not ideally assist with adequate on-site open space provision, albeit it does include provision of a children's play area. The points raised by the Parish Council have been noted. Owing to the ecological issues and the unresolved issue in relation to satisfactory habitat regulation assessment, it is recommended that the application is delegated to the Planning Services Manager to grant approval subject to the completion of a satisfactory Section 106 obligation and the conditions as set out in Appendix 1 attached to the report, and any amendments to these conditions as considered necessary by the Planning Services Manager, and subject to no objections being raised by Natural England in relation to the habitat regulation assessment. Should Natural England object, then it is recommended the application is brought back to committee for determination. That concludes my presentation on this application, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip, for that. Before we move on to the solicitor to read out the statements, I would just like to say the Whitchurch Rural Parish Council had a problem getting their comments out in time because of an internet failure. So as chair, I have accepted the late comments. Well, because of that, I have given the agent another 200 words to respond to the late entry from the Parish Council. So now we'll move on to Miranda. If you could read out the statements, please.
Thank you, Chair. Miranda Garrett speaking. Just for the benefit of those listening, I would just add the reason the Chair agreed for additional words is because the agent had already submitted their statement and therefore needed to either add or amend to it in a very short space of time, hence the additional word allowance. The first statement is from Whitchurch Parish Council. There's then the local member who is elected to read his own, and then the applicant's agent. So Whitchurch Rural Parish Council state, Whitchurch Rural Parish Council objects to planning application 19-02203 full. The Gleeson concept to solve a shortage of affordable housing is an excellent one. The unfortunate thing is therefore that it is the right scheme but in the wrong place. You have received many good and sound material planning reasons from Whitchurch Rural as to why this development should not be in the proposed location. We have no need to repeat them and expect you to recognise that they are not frivolous and that they should have considerable weight given to them when you make your decision. We take this extra opportunity to point out that Gleeson's mitigating measures to our objections and the many objections of the immediate neighbours, although welcome, will in the real world be difficult to enforce in the future. In particular, dog fouling and contamination of the adjacent SSSI will increase significantly. In the real world, the Parish Council will end up clearing it up. The proposed public open space will be managed and maintained by a management committee from the 48 households, will it? In the real world, the Parish Council will probably end up being responsible if it is to remain available as public open space. The households are going to love paying to provide play facilities for the customers of the nearby commercial outlets, aren't they? And will soon either abandon it or keep it for themselves. The report says that, quote, Shropshire Council recognise that there is an affordability issue in respect of housing across the county, end quote. Also that, quote, the affordable housing team have assessed the evidence and agree that there is a local demand for affordable housing in the local area, end quote. What evidence have they assessed? We cannot find it. Where are the results of the housing needs survey for us to consult? Perhaps they are missing because we are at present undertaking a housing needs survey for the Whitchurch rural area, so a valid survey hasn't actually been done yet. If, when we have the results of our survey early next year, a local need is shown, then I am sure that we would support a Gleeson scheme in the right place, which would be a similar field on the edge of Ash, or better still, the edge of Tilstock, where the full range of services are easily accessible without needing a car, and where better support will be given by a new development to maintaining either ash or tillstock. Please do not repeat the mistake of the 60s with tower block development by creating a warren at Priest Heath. We know Gleesons are providing us with the template to provide affordable housing in North Shropshire. Let us learn from it and encourage them to seek an alternative site in the best and most fitting location, which this really isn't. The next speaker, Chair, would be Councillor Dakin as the local member.
Thank you for that, Miranda. Okay, Councillor Dakin.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make out the statement and then I shall switch off my my microphone and my camera.
Thank you.
Early last year, members of Shropshire Council representing Whitchurch and Priest attended a meeting organised by Gleeson Homes. We were presented with their plan to build 48 dwellings at Priest Heath on a plot of approximately 1.7 hectares. The Gleeson team outlined their philosophy on providing homes that were affordable for first-time buyers on a fixed income. And I think it was safe to say we were all very impressed. And thinking, by the presentation and their thinking, although at the time I was not convinced that Priest Heath was the best area in which to build 48 houses. During the intervening months, I believe they have sent out a housing needs assessment to all local areas and had positive responses, although I personally haven't seen them. Whitchurch rural parish is fairly unique in that it covers two main villages, Tillstock to the west and Ash to the east. They are separated by two arterial road routes, the A41 and 49, both very busy highways, and with no pedestrian access crossing available to get to up from one side to the other. Priest Heath is situated on the west, Tillstock side. Priest Heath is a very busy area servicing a busy truck stop, various cafes and parking, including overnight for up to 50 HGVs, and could best be described as an industrial site for transport. The thought of putting 48 homes situated next to this is, in my opinion, too much in such a small area, and would lead to many problems conflicting with the mixed use of the area. Tillstock Village is a vibrant community with a good bus route. It has a bowls club, tennis club, a village hall, school and village pub, and is approximately 1 kilometre away from Priest Heath. But the road is very poor and is certainly not safe to walk, with no footpath and busy commuter traffic. Tillstock could take this type of development, as could Whitchurch Town, but not Priest Heath. The proposed development of Priest Heath will have little leisure facilities. There is no Priest Heath Common. There is Priest Heath Common, but it's on the other side of the A49, a busy road, and there's no crossing. There is Brown Moss, a site of special scientific interest. This could not be used for this site either, as it's the other side of the A41-49 bypass, again with no crossing points. Whilst I believe in the idea of Gleesons represent, and would really wish to support them, I think the development of Priest Heath would be out of step with the local plan and must be resisted. I hope that officers can liaise with Gleesons and use their services to provide a site more suitable locally, because their model is excellent and is much needed locally. But this application falls well short of the open space, recreation space required for this site of 48 dwellings. Thank you. I'm going to switch off now.
Thank you, Councillor Dakin, for that. Miranda, you have one more, I believe.
I do, Chair. The final statement is from Gleeson, the applicant, and they state, firstly, thank you, Councillor Dakin, for your support of the Gleeson housing model. Gleeson specialise in the provision of entry-level housing aimed at first-time buyers, giving customers at the lower end of the housing market a chance to buy their own home. We take special care in determining selling prices that are affordable to as many local people as possible by consulting the government's annual survey of hours and earnings figures for an area to ensure selling prices are affordable to at least 90% of local working couples. As Councillor Dakin notes, that housing affordability is a significant issue in Shropshire, one which we believe we can assist in addressing now, and we would be prepared to commit to a development start in Q1 of 2021. This scheme includes 25 affordable homes. The legal agreement we are proposing ensures that the price of these homes, which have been agreed with your housing officers, will be based on local incomes and attainable for your constituents. As demonstrated in our submitted report and nearby Priest, there is a need for a variety of potential purchasers ranging from first-time buyers seeking to move out of their parents' house or rented properties, staff working for local employers who can't afford to live nearby, couples requiring more space for a growing family, existing homeowners needing to downsize to reduce their mortgage, or older and disabled people needing accommodation which supports mobility restrictions. Based on a typical variable mortgage, a 2-bed affordable home on the site would cost in the region of £86.95 a week. We believe that this approach to house building will help to bridge the ever-widening gap in Shropshire between house prices and incomes, and will provide a valuable contribution to the affordable housing requirement within the area. Shropshire is a rural county with a local plan that has adopted a rural rebalancing approach to development. We consider the location of this site complies with this and also enables people living within this rural community to stay there, rather than getting priced out. Indeed, the majority of the homes proposed will be prioritised for local people, as set out in the legal agreement that will accompany this application. Gleeson also recognise key workers and military personnel who have done so much to help this country, and we offer them up to £2,000 of free customer extras and a dedicated 48-hour priority period to reserve plots prior to general public release across our schemes. We have worked with officers throughout the application process to ensure that the proposals are appropriate for their context. Changes incorporated to achieve this include a reduction in the number of homes and provision of a meaningful area of open space, including children's play equipment for the benefit of the wider village. This critical mass of new family homes and open space on an otherwise enclosed site is a real opportunity to enhance and anchor the village of Priest Heath. We, like your officers, consider that the site is in a sustainable location. It benefits from excellent access to local services, facilities and bus links. Inevitably, new residents will support existing local businesses and thereby provide an opportunity for them to enhance their offering as a result. The scheme also includes the following package of measures for the Council and its stakeholders. £3,500 for Priest Heath Common Reserve in response to Natural England's observations. £167,687 for education services, £147,927 for open space improvements, £265,183 still payment, and ecology enhancements including dog waste bins and educational leaflets. We have ensured there will be no burden upon local facilities in the maintenance and upkeep of the open space area, play equipment, dog waste bins and their collection, which will be the responsibility of a reputed management company, the methodology of which is within the supporting legal agreement. Gleeson are all about low-cost home ownership. All our properties are freehold and we do not sell to landlords, and in fact sales contracts with our customers include a no rental covenant for a minimum period of 5 years without our express approval. It is our hope that, particularly in these difficult times, a predominantly first-time buyer-led low-cost home ownership scheme is supported by members. That's the end of that statement, Chair.
Thank you, Miranda, for that. Just before going further, is everybody muted? Gerald, are you muted? I can hear a bit of background noise going on. If anybody else is muted, somebody's...
I don't think Gerald is muted, Chair.
Sorry?
Gerald's not muted, Chair. There's no... I think he's still live because his circle keeps popping up. Oh, he is now.
He's muted now. Thank you, Gerald, for that. You can't... Right, okay. So, does the planning officer wish to clarify any points in response? Philip?
Not at this stage, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to I'd be interested to see what members have to say on this one.
Thank you. Okay. Members of the committee can now make their comments. The lister will indicate who is next to speak. Just before we go there, I'd like to make a comment just on the open space, really. It's only half the size it should be, and all this money going away to other places will have no benefit to the people in those houses living there. I just don't quite understand that. I think it's a great, Gleason's do a great job, but I have a big question mark over the open space. Okay, now we'll open it up to the committee. Miranda, do we have anybody indicating?
Indeed, Chair. Yes, the first one is Councillor Hunt.
Okay, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hunt here. I have to say, first of all, and it's going to be a reiteration of a lot of what we've heard before. I think the Gleason model is particularly good. I think it's very well suited to Shropshire, and I think it does give people who are first-time buyers a leg up onto the ladder, and that's to be applauded. Now, that's the upside. The downside is that, as you have just alluded to, and even officers have alluded to, it's about the public open space. There is none on site. We have had applications in the past where payments of money have been made, but often to developments on the edge of some public open, accessible public open space. And I say accessible because that's a key word here, where that has increased the facilities and the upkeep of those public open spaces for the use of the residents. What we have here is an applaudable company offering to build a number of houses far beyond those which would normally be required under the local model for affordable housing. Unfortunately, there is no accessible green space. They are talking about giving money to the or people accessing the common across the road. That would facilitate the crossing of an extremely busy A road. There is provision on site for younger human beings to play on the play park, which is good, but I can't see us particularly wanting teenagers to play football on the A road or on the car park of the lorry cafe, or having to cross the road indeed to go and play football over there. Philip said at the beginning in his presentation that this was one that was on a bit of a knife edge. I think for me, it's not really on a knife edge. I think it's fallen off the knife edge. I'm not going to support this. I don't think there's anything that other members can say that would make me support this. You know, if the application had come in, which it hasn't, with 38 houses and perhaps a green open space in the middle for youngsters to play on and whatnot, that will be fine. But we're talking about COVID days at the moment, where the only recreation people can have is outside and walking, going through a truck stop, cafe, car park, then having to cross the main road to be able to access any open space is it's not just not desirable, it's just foolish, and people won't do it. They will get in their cars to drive to other open spaces, which at the moment is something that is being discouraged. I can't support this in any way, shape or form, so I will be moving that we reject this on policy MD2 open space, because there just isn't sufficient. There's less than half of what's required. I don't think it's in the spirit of the NPPF. I'm sure other members, some will probably echo what I have to say. I'm sure all will praise the model, but I think essentially I can't see any of us saying anything different, Chair. So I will be moving that we reject this application for the reasons that I've given.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. We'll take that on board, your proposal, a bit later on. We'll hear we'll do the discussions first. Okay, I'll come back to you on that. Okay, do we have any more indicators?
Councillor Mosley, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley.
Thank you, Chair. Pam Mosley here. Well, Vince Hunt has just said really practically everything I was going to say, and Paul Wynne before him. You know, we have a policy MD2, which is 30 square metres per bed space. And as has been said, this doesn't even meet half of that requirement. A good model, as has been said, but just woefully inadequate on the open space. And there's a mention there of £147,000 odd being made available for provision elsewhere, but it's subject to suitable alternative local provision being provided. There's no certainty there whatsoever. We have no idea where it's going to be or if it's going to be. So I would echo Councillor Hunt's comments. I can't support this on the basis of the open space, although I think the model is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mosley. Philip, you'd like to come in now? Is that Philip?
Can I just ask that we put the slide up showing the plan layout out of fairness to the applicants, so that members are fully aware of what open space is being provided, as this is clearly a contentious issue with members.
Certainly, Philip. So can we have, that's not the slide we want, is it?
That's the one. I know it's not the clearest, but it shows the open space to the, no, go back to the earlier one, please.
Go back one, Tim, please.
No, backwards, not forward.
No.
No, to the one you had with the layout, because you need to show the houses with the, yeah. No, not the one before that. That's the one. Can you just leave it at that, please? Right, that shows the layout, the site layout, because you need to note the garden areas to the houses, as well as what they are providing as open space. The open space is here at the back of the garage, as I've indicated, and it's not all children's play area. The children's play area is a partial of it in the middle, surrounded by green space. However, it still doesn't meet the policy requirements of MB2 as outlined. I just wanted to be clear on that matter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that, Philip. Just one more point. I know the area very well. There is no open space within a mile of this place, which members wouldn't know because you're not told, but you have to go to a church or Tilstock or wherever, but there is no open space in that area except the provision they've given. Okay, any more speakers?
Yes, Chair. The next speaker, Councillor Aldcroft.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Aldcroft.
Yeah, regarding, well, one question I have to start with is I'm surprised there isn't access off Golf House Lane at the back there, or at the north-eastern end into this estate rather than off the A49 direct. Secondly, I noticed Gleason's, it's a lovely estate, it's great, but as we say, it's in the wrong place, and I'm just looking at the list of people that may be going to live there. When we talk about old, disabled, young mums, there's no shops. There's no work. There's no bus service. How do you get to where you need to be from a place like this, where, okay, it's a low-cost housing in part, but if you're going for low-cost housing, you're stretching your budget, and in this location, half your budget's going to be taken up by travelling from point A to point B. So I think Councillor Dakin was quite right. This needs to be close to Whitchurch or close to a town, rather than out in the middle of the country where everybody's got to have a car, possibly two. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Just to pick you up one point there, Roy, is there is a shop by the garage. Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Right. Okay.
That's fine. Do we have any more indicators to speak?
Councillor D.
Sorry?
Councillor D.
Thank you, Miranda.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Pauline D. I take on board everything that has said. I mean, I read the report, and it's again reiterating that it is really a good scheme. However, MD2 open space, you know, they just need it so much, because it just raised all sorts of problems. And one of the things I'm pretty sure was said that there'd be a management group to look after the play area or the public open space. Now, what concerns me is the cost to would there be an annual cost to the homeowners because we've got one here in Wem, and the cost of it seems to rise annually. And it's ended up that people are really very concerned at how expensive it can become if you've got a public open space with a management group and with an annual fee for the maintenance of this. So that was one of my questions, but unfortunately I have read it and I was very much for it, but I'm sorry, I'm against this. Because there is just not enough public open space for young people.
Thank you, Councillor D. Miranda, has anybody indicated? Anybody else?
Councillor Bardsley.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bardsley.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Nick Bardsley. Nothing really to add to what previous speakers have said. It's a great principle, but it isn't adequately worked through. There isn't enough open space, and frankly, it's in the wrong location. I shall be supporting any proposal Vince Hunt puts forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bardsley. Miranda, anybody else?
No, Chair, at present.
Thank you very much. Right, I'm going back to Councillor Hunt now, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do think Councillor Vasmer had indicated though after Nick Bardsley before I speak.
Okay, Councillor Vasmer, would you like to speak? No. Okay.
Mr. Chair, can Philip Molyneux speak?
I didn't ask to see if you had any more points you'd like to respond to. Sorry about that, Philip. Yes, go on.
I'd like to clarify one issue, Mr. Chair, if I may, please, in relation to Councillor Aldercroft. Gulf House Lane to the north of the site does have pedestrian access onto it out of the site, but it does not have vehicle access. But they have got links to a link onto the lane for pedestrians. That's just one point I wanted to make clear.
Thank you very much, Philip. Is there anything else you'd like to come back?
No, nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, coming back to Vince then. Would you like to put a proposal forward, Vince?
My proposal is as stands, as I said earlier. I believe that this is contrary to the spirit of NWPF, but I also think it's a direct contravention of planning policy MD2, public open space. We're not just a little bit short. We're less than half per person as per our policy requirement. That can be mitigated by putting money into an accessible, close scheme that people can access, but I don't believe that there is one accessible because it would involve getting across a very busy A road, which is not practical and it's not safe. So for that reason, I think we should offer a rejection of this application.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? I think Pam was getting close to it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mosley. So we have a proposer and seconder.
Chair, Councillor Vasmer has asked to speak again.
Okay. Right. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Vasmer. Yes.
Thanks. I don't know what happened then. I had some brief problem with my internet, but I am concerned that we have schemes like this for affordable housing, but but we don't actually approve them. We actually say that another site should be more suitable. And I do worry that people praise Gleason's, but we don't actually approve this scheme. And maybe we should be deferring it. And also because of the report, the environmental report, we haven't got yet. I wonder whether we could defer this and maybe ask the developers to review, perhaps maybe in the interim, review their proposals to see whether we can actually get a scheme which might be more acceptable in terms of open space.
So is that a proposal? Just hang on a second.
Chair, you do have a proposal that's been proposed and seconded. I wouldn't agree with that anyway. So.
Yeah. Just Miranda, coming to you. Can we have a proposal for different thoughts, or do we just go with the one we've got and see
I think you have to take mine first, Chair.
Just to clarify with Miranda, please.
You do need to take the first proposal you have got that's been proposed and seconded, unless it's a specific amendment to that proposal, but to defer isn't. It's not like suggesting a different condition to it or something.
Okay, so we'll go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Philip.
I'd like to officers have tried to engage with the applicants to provide what they considered an alternative piece of open space, and this is the one they wanted to go forward with.
Okay, so that I think that clarifies
Thank you.
Councillor Vasmer's idea at the moment. So we'll now so we have a proposer and seconder. Now we'll take a vote on it, and the solicitor will read out the names of the committee members in turn. Thank you, Miranda.
Just to be clear, Chair, so it's to refuse the application because the development, it does not comply with the local plan in that it does not comply with MD2, and the proposed payment in lieu of open space does not deal with that non-compliance, to be completely clear of the reason that members are putting forward. I think that's what we had heard from Councillor Hunt.
That is exactly what you heard from me. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you. So that's the proposal to refuse, and it's for or against members. Right. Councillor Aldcroft.
For.
Councillor Bardsley.
For.
Councillor D.
For.
Councillor Green.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Mosley.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Vasmer.
For.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Wynne.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much, Miranda. So that is unanimous. That's been voted out. Okay, now we go on to item 8, appeals and appeal decisions. Does the planning officer or solicitor wish to make any comments on the appeals?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like you'll see we've had an application for costs awarded against us. I've asked the solicitor, could she comment, please, to you on behalf of officers on this matter?
Thank you, Chair. You'll see that the one where the costs were awarded was in relation to a prior approval matter for a farm reservoir. The costs decision was because the inspector identified that the issues for the planning authority in terms of prior approval were the siting of the reservoir. So what you're looking at is whether the development is permitted development, and that it is permitted if it has prior approval. However, the officers and the council focused on whether in fact it met the requirements to be permitted in terms of its size. And actually that is not something for the council to look at in terms of prior approval. So the council's position was that in fact it didn't even meet the criteria to be permitted development. But that wasn't part of the relevant criteria, unlike, for example, when you've got barn conversions to residential, where those are permitted, the criteria for whether in fact they meet the permitted development criteria are relevant to the prior approval. But for this, it wasn't in the general permitted development order. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant, in fact, in that one, has a permission under the permitted development order if they don't, in fact, meet the criteria set out. It's just that the council couldn't require that prior approval be given and shouldn't have refused that effectively. So it's a sort of slightly complicated issue under the general permitted development order that was focused on, and that's what's led to what, in my opinion, is a slightly harsh cost decision, but there we are.
Thank you for that, Miranda. Do any of the members wish to comment on the appeals? Otherwise, we'll note them.
No, just well done to the officers again. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Right, so that's that. So Date of the next meeting. To note, the next meeting of the Northern Planning Committee will be held at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 8th of December 2020. That concludes the agenda. I will now close the meeting and ask the committee officer to end the live event.